series dedicated to exploring technology trends that make an impact. I'm Danielle Panichi, Head of Marketing Communications at Virtusa. The Mexican fintech ecosystem is gaining major momentum with the introduction of open banking regulations, becoming one of the nations to embrace this global revolution. What are some of the key changes in Mexican banking sectors? How has open banking influenced financial inclusion? How do citizens feel about it? And has Mexico's startup culture received a boost with the introduction of open banking norms? We discuss this and much more in today's episode. We have with us today thought leaders, innovators, and industry experts who are deeply involved in the Mexican banking industry. I am joined by Javier, who is the founder and CEO of IST Solutions, a leading digital strategy and transformation boutique consulting company based in Mexico. Hi, Javier.
Hi, Danielle. I used to be, thanks for the invitation. My previous background, I was head of innovation at Santander, and I spent 10 years in a fintech as a CEO of Yellow Pepper, working in the payments industry. And I have been involved with financial institutions, with top management consulting companies. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm also joined by Michel, a senior thought leader and consultant in the IT strategy and digital transformation space. Hi, Michel.
Hello, Danielle. Briefly talking about me, I basically have been a consultant and thought leader on the IT arena, IT strategy, working for top management consulting firms, as well as a CIO. I worked for 3 of the largest banks in the country as a CIO, and I also worked for tech companies like Microsoft and Kio. So combining all that expertise during the last year, I've been concentrating more on the open banking technologies and opportunities. And thank you very much for this invitation.
And we're also joined by Puru, the Vice President of Partnerships and Latin American Business for Banking and Financial Services at Virtusa.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you. As you mentioned, I manage the alliances for Banking and Financial Services Group. Also, I'm leading the expansion of our unit into Latin America. Been with the firm for about 17 years and have spent all of those 17 years in financial technology, having served several clients across North and South America. So our vision in Latin America is to be the preferred engineering firm for open banking initiatives. We're starting with Mexico, but we hope to expand to other areas in Latin America as well. Our core focus has always been in accelerating business outcomes for the digital transformation initiatives, operational efficiency programs, and innovation programs as well. We believe that our combined expertise in these 3 areas will help us drive better outcomes for open banking initiatives in Latin America. Looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks for joining us, Javier, Michel, and Puru. To get us started, Michel, what digital transformation trends do you foresee in the Latin American market, primarily in Mexico?
Sure, Danielle. Latin America is not different than the rest of the country when it comes to digital transformation initiatives and trends. Most of the players and stakeholders in the financial sector are basically looking for the same goals. And first of all, they're all looking for an excellence in customer service. All this lockdown that we lived during the last year not only strengthened this need of having an agile, anywhere, anytime experience. We all experience that. Second, a flexible and personalized product and services. Customers are becoming much more selective in choosing their service provider, their financial service provider, that better fits their needs. So they're looking at better selections, all these fintechs now available, and all these different financial services providers gives them that opportunity. And most important, the profitability. Everything has to be done while attaining the higher levels of profitability, while attaining the lower or operational costs. So specifically to answer your question, what are the digital transformations that are occurring? I would say that to achieve the objectives that I just mentioned, most companies are doing one or more of the following initiatives. First is the integration to open ecosystems. The The open banking initiative has started, has been regulated, and is becoming a key strategy for all the players, including banks, lenders, credit unions, fintech, payment services, and other financial sector players. Second, like I mentioned before, is digital banking, bringing user experience, agility, and flexibility to customers at all levels and markets. It's becoming very, very much important and a key strategy for most players. Third is basically KYC and AI. That's know your customer, analytics, artificial intelligence. All the access to the information, all the open ecosystem, and all the access to newer information, it's becoming key for knowing your customer, for doing artificial intelligence, and better understanding the customer behaviors, their needs, their trends, and their preferences. So that's going to be very important to personalize and tailor the product and service. And finally, it's everything related to cloud, decoupled open architecture, and API. Every digital transformation will eventually run on a cloud-based platform, either it be a hybrid cloud, a private cloud, or just public cloud, and mainly with open standards and API integration. These are the fundamentals of open banking and the inception of the ecosystem and the systems that rely to operate and grow on them.
Thanks, Michel. Javier, what are some of the key factors driving the open banking ecosystem in Mexico?
Thank you, Michel. This is a very exciting question. Let me start by giving you a little bit of background about Mexico. 130 million people, 75% of the population between 15 and 70 years old do not have a bank account. But in the meantime, the new government just expand the access possibility for young people between 15 and 17 years old to open a bank account without the permission of their parents. They can open an account for themselves. So the whole, and on the other hand, we have been, since I was a kid, listening to the same story that only 3 banks capture more than 60% of the total assets and total credit. So what I'm trying to say to the audience here is the huge opportunity which has been taken by the fintech system, by the different systems. It is not only the technology. We have regulation, and we'll talk later a little bit about regulation. The political forces, I just talked about all these social programs, and the economic forces like the U.S. trade agreement. The fintechs, in the meantime, are growing and growing very strongly, addressing 3 things. First one, helping to expand access and usability. Michel gave a great explanation of what banks are doing for reasons that we all know. Sometimes they are slow, except when they will be helped by Virtusa. But the fintechs are taking a big role in expanding access and reaching what we call the last mile. All these social programs that are reaching 30 million people, the government has become aware that they cannot do it in the old way. And the old way was sending cash in trucks to the gas station and following a cumbersome KYC process in order to make sure that Danielle was Danielle and receiving full of corruption, etc., etc. We can talk. Now the government has committed to make all this digital, up to the point that we just last week, the World Bank has given us a $1 billion to digitize the economy on 3 fronts, and this is for the whole fintech. Access, which means digital identity, supporting the fintechs, and make credit accessible, and especially make credit accessible to the SMEs in the Mexican market, which if I tell you the figure, you won't believe it. We have 12 million people, 12 million SMEs, if you take into account the formal and informal sector. Of that addressable market, only 400,000 receive a credit. So when you have a liquidity crisis and you can never receive a credit, but at the same time the World Bank is pushing, you have a perfect combination in which the stars are getting aligned. So that's a movement that just by the market itself is getting ahead. We have to add to that the regulation, which I think is very important as a framework in order to make the decisions you need to make.
Javier, could you please elaborate on the new fintech law? Are there any other regulatory changes that Mexico is implementing?
Yeah, so we have a law that in 2018 is called the fintech law. That is now being implemented. It started to be implemented in March 2020. It was completely approved by the whole Congress. The left, the right, and the center. No one voted against it. And there's a very important article called Article 76, which is just addresses the open banking. All 5,000 Mexican institutions would open their data to third parties. That's by law. It is a process, it takes time, etc., but it's moving. And I have to say that actually the players are moving ahead of the regulation, which has been published already in the official gazette. This is very important. When you say you publish, you have to make sure that it has been in the published gazette. So it's in the official gazette, has been published, the different roadmap. And as Michel was saying, we're talking about banks, fintechs, all financial institutions. And it's very clear the law with 6 points. The first one is to encourage financial innovation. The only way in which you can break a monopoly, and I see in a good way, it is to make trade more accessible. Is you need to invite people to innovate. You have to make a commitment to financial inclusion. That's objective number 2. Objective number 3, you have to make sure consumer protection, the whole identity thing. You have to promote competition. What does it mean? GAFAs, for example, Google, Apple, Facebook. As long as the system, you have a stable financial system, you are open to competition. Actually, just WhatsApp has gone to India, and the next country that is coming down is to Mexico, and Mexico welcomes those kind of institutions. And the last one is I just said maintaining financial stability. That's very important. And the last one is preventing money laundering and financial terrorism. So the Article 76 applies to all financial institutions, but at the same time, the financial institutions can ask retailers and other non-banks that are playing in the financial sector for this kind of information. So just imagine the digital transformation that we will start seeing, and at the same time, the competition that is going to be driven by people that know how to access data, how to make digital, how to transform digitally, how to exploit the data, how to make analytics, how to put everything into the cloud, many things. So it's like going for a meal in which you need to know what to ask for. It's a huge menu. You need to ask, what are you going to have for dinner? And be very focused because the plate is ready. Thank you, Daniel.
In Peru, from a technology leader and service provider's perspective, what similarities do you see between the Mexican open banking ecosystem and other open banking initiatives around the world? And what inspiration could Mexico draw from them?
Oh, thank you, Daniel. Virtusa has been working on several open banking initiatives in Europe, Asia, and even in Australia. What we see, there are some common themes everywhere. If you look at Europe, the main drivers were giving consumers control over their data. There's a growing movement across the world to make consumers control the data they create. The second was increasing competition in the financial services market. Javier talked about it in Mexico. That is also the case. in many countries, it's an oligopoly, right? Few firms control 80% or 60% of the market share, so that people perceive that to create higher costs over time. So that's second driver. Third is obviously fostering innovation. Just by allowing access to financial data, people are thinking that it will create a platform for third parties to create new products that you have not seen before. Just like when Google Maps opened up their data, company like Uber could be created. And that's the same thinking that's driving. That's the third driver, I would say. The fourth theme is financial inclusion. You see mostly that in Asia, not so much of a use case in Europe. And that's the fourth use case we also heard from Javier, is the case in Mexico. So there are some similarities, especially in the latter three I mentioned: increasing competition in financial services, fostering innovation, and increasing financial inclusion. I think the inspiration that Mexico could draw from other experiences are, I would say, two. One from a public sector, another I'll talk about one from a private sector. From a public sector perspective, I find the experiment in Singapore very fascinating. So in Singapore, as you're aware, Virtusa's online innovation platform is powering the APIX platform. Now, APIX platform is a platform that has been launched by the ASEAN Financial Innovation Network, AFIN. AFIN is a nonprofit created by the ASEAN Bankers Association, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and the World Bank. And their goal is to achieve financial inclusion, but through collaboration between financial institutions and fintechs. Now, you might ask, how will that result in financial inclusion? For that, if we go back to what financial inclusion essentially is giving access to the unbanked to three functions: storing money, borrowing money, and moving money. And some countries have obviously issued a lot of licenses and allow people to enter the market, more players in the market, increase competition, and that will probably increase financial inclusion. But there's something under the hood that I think Singapore folks have understood. Essentially, there are two barriers. One is the cost of compliance or cost of license, if you will, which I think governments are doing their best. The second is actually the cost of financial infrastructure. Actually building the technology infrastructure the new players need itself is a big barrier to entry for many. And some governments have obviously addressed that also in their own ways. For example, the Indian government built the UPI. So the moving money part is now, there is a common infrastructure that is controlling that or is making it easier. Mexico did the same thing. They're very similar in that way. They've launched CODI, which is a similar payment network. But still, the rest of it, the storing and borrowing money, all of the infrastructure, regulation, technology, all of that is still a barrier. And that's where, by creating a network, what ASEAN Financial Network has done is they've helped the ecosystem organize into a set of front office firms which are primarily focused on serving the clients, and a set of back office firms wherein there are a set of infrastructure fintechs, if you will, that provide banking technology services to the front office firms and other firms. And these are across the spectrum. There are some banks providing banking as a service to fintechs, and some fintechs providing, let's say, credit scoring service to a bank. And that's the ecosystem that is developing. I think Mexico and Latin America could take inspiration from that and see if a similar network can be set up in Mexico. I think that might help bring down the costs of financial technology, convert it from a large fixed cost into a variable cost for many of these new players. So that's interesting, we see. The second use case is from the private sector. We were working with a bank in Abu Dhabi, and this Middle Eastern bank, they have an innovation program within the firm, but they decide also build a platform for innovation. The way they're using our open innovation platform is they've created a developer platform or a portal, and they have decided to crowdsource some of the innovation. They've invited several budding fintechs to come and work with them. And the idea is to provide a platform which has some near real-like banking data and APIs, and to allow the fintechs to interact and build a better product for their customers. And as of last reading, we know that they've selected 5 companies to partner with, 5 fintechs. And that's another way of approaching innovation. It doesn't have to be all internal. And that use case is something that some of the private firms or even the public sector firms in Mexico and Latin America could emulate. Those are 2 things we find fascinating, and we hope to see if we can replicate that in Latin America. Thank you, Daniel.
How do you see the Mexican financial ecosystem evolve from here on, Javier and Michel?
So the financial, what Puri just described very well about Singapore and Abu Dhabi is exactly what we're trying to do in Mexico. And this is what the law says. It says three things. The first one, we have to be open API standards. So we're following the UK open banking standards and the European banking standards, which are based on BIAN. Here, Puru can help me later. I think Virtusa has done lots of work with BIAN, and it's the fundamental for the UK law and the PSD2 law in Europe, also called the Berlin law. So the first one is the open API standards. The second one, very important, is in order to put fintech into place, you need a supervision. And so there's a law also emphasizing what is called RegTech and SupTech. So here we also have an infinite space. And the third one, and the most important one, is that the Mexican government is, at least is sensible, that in order to have this, in order for everybody to have access to this open banking technology, you need a sandbox. And that's what excites me so much about Virtusa. In order to change the fixed cost to variable costs and allow these small fintechs, small doesn't mean that they are bad, but they are small, or mid-tier banks, you need a sandbox in which they can test products, they can access APIs, and shift the fixed, what it used to cost a lot of money, to variable costs. And that's in the law. The law says, exactly, it says a functional regulatory sandbox environment for innovative business model. So what we have to do is, again, given that we have the law, is in order to push it. And the last, and the second one, the fintechs are building a lot of customer-centric products. One of them is for financial inclusion of vulnerable populations, for example, knowing how much they spend, how much they would be able to spend, etc., etc. What is happening now is that the finance, as Puru was saying, is storing, moving, and borrowing money to do something. Health, shopping, education. So those are the ecosystems that are now forming. Just yesterday, not to go just far away. Yesterday, Monday, one of the largest banks in Mexico got an alliance with one of the largest consumer good companies in Mexico to address 1 million mom and shops. In Mexico, they are called tienditas, and they are digitizing, or they will be digitizing this 1 million. That's a plan, but they are addressing very important things like making more efficient the supply chain, making people pay with coding. So many things going on in the financial ecosystem. Two things that I would like to emphasize: we have the regulation, and we have and people are responding. And not only the fintechs, as we said at the beginning, but also big banks. So that's, for me, the big news is a bank, as the second largest bank in the country, which is from the US, being aware of the importance of addressing this population, which is big. Thank you, Danielle.
Michel, did you have anything to add there?
Well, yeah, I'm going to try to summarize my final thoughts. I think both Puru and Javier really did a great job talking about what's happening in other countries and in Mexico. But to summarize, I'd say that in Mexico, open banking has started. It's been regulated, and the key stakeholders are really moving fast. There will be a lot of opportunities and benefits for the financial institutions, but mainly for the customers. All this openness to different ecosystems, retailers, banking, insurance, and others will give a lot of opportunities for the customers, a lot of options and products and services to choose from. Actually, when all this started in the UK, it was because of the customers. It was of the openness and the competitiveness that the regulators were looking for to provide better services for the customer. We know there will be risks involved. There will be penalties and loss of business opportunities for those who don't join the ecosystem, the open banking ecosystem in time. Puru mentioned not all of them will have the financial resources to do it. So therefore, the players that will provide the API as a services, the API hubs, and the integration will be key, and there will be also opportunities there. In summary, the game is on. We are excited. We are also very excited to be partnering with Virtusa and bringing all their opportunities. I mean, all the products and services and their experience into our market. Thank you very much, Danielle, for the opportunity to talk in this Tech Talk.
Puru, is there anything else you'd like to add today?
Well, I agree with Michel and Javier. I do also believe that open banking is a force for good. The social impact of the work we hope to do is, I think, very high, and that excites me. And having good partners on the journey is also important. That's why it's great to work with such luminaries like Javier and Michel. It's also fun to work with them. So I really look forward to working with IST and Javier and Michel. And I'm also excited by the prospect of helping Mexico and the rest of Latin America in their open banking journey. Thank you, Michel. Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks, Puru, Javier, and Michel. We really appreciate your time today and look forward to having you on our Tech Talk again. Thanks, everyone, for viewing this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, check out our Tech Talk series, and visit our website at virtusa.com to learn more.